So last night at approximately 10:59 p.m., one of our St. Paul officers was working a DWI and traffic detail in our city, and he came across a vehicle that he observed make several traffic violations, and he attempted to stop that vehicle. The vehicle fled when the officer activated their lights, and our officer followed him briefly, but did not pursue that vehicle. And they followed it until they lost sight of it. Shortly thereafter, a second St. Paul officer discovered that vehicle parking a short distance from where the last officer had seen it on Revue Street by one of our high-rises. This was less than a half a mile away from where the original stop was attempted. When the officer pulled up to investigate the vehicle at that time, it again took off. Our officer began to follow that car, and the occupant of that vehicle began shooting at the officer, shooting through the rear windshield of his vehicle back towards our police car. Our officer did not return fire, but began a pursuit of the suspect vehicle. The suspect fled and crashed approximately a mile into this pursuit, hitting a parked vehicle on the 800 block of Fuller Avenue in our city. Officers attempted to surround the car and call the driver out, and the driver exited the vehicle, fled on foot, and our officers gave pursuit on foot and were subsequently able to get the suspect into custody after a brief physical fight. No other weapons were used by our officers at that time. The person arrested was Samuel Cal Flowers, a 26-year-old male who was taken to Regions Hospital as a precaution and a part of our process and procedure because they were involved in a traffic accident. Shortly thereafter, they were booked at the Ramsey County Jail for the following charges: attempted murder, assault, fleeing police in a motor vehicle, possession of a firearm by an ineligible person, possession of a stolen firearm. Thankfully, our investigation has identified no other victims in relation to this case, but we ask our community to come forward if they're aware of a victim or if they have property that may have been damaged or struck by this person's gunfire. Inside of the vehicle, after our arrest, our investigators located the following items: a stolen AR-15 style rifle, still loaded on the front passenger seat, 8 spent shell casings inside the vehicle, green tip armor-piercing ammunition of the .223 caliber designed to penetrate steel, another magazine with more ammunition. Also, when the suspect was searched incident to his arrest, suspected cocaine and fentanyl were recovered on his person. Here's what we know. Mr. Flowers is currently on intensive supervised release. He was released from the Minnesota Department of Corrections on March 4th, 2024. He was in custody for assault in the first degree and dangerous weapons drive-by shooting. He was released, like I said, from prison in March of 2024, and shortly thereafter that month, he was arrested again for a weapons charge. The Ramsey County Attorney's Office charged that case, and he had a pretrial hearing in the summer, and he was issued a $100,000 bail, which was paid, and he was out on bail for that charge as well. There is dash camera footage of all of this, and our officers were wearing body cameras, and they were activated and turned on. We think this is obviously a very important and a very dangerous case for our city, but I want to stress something. We arrest approximately 4,500 people a year. 4,500. We call use of force here resistance to response and aggression. 99.7% of our arrests result in no force used by our officers. 0.3% is that very small percentage. We are grateful that this person was brought into custody and that no one in our community, none of our officers, and even Mr. Flowers was injured. But I would say we're very, very lucky. That's what we have at this time for this. I can and will answer a few quick questions, but I'd ask you to respect the fact that this is a very early investigation, less than 24 hours old, so I'll be limited on what I can say.
This does highlight the dangers that our officers face every day when they're on the streets serving and protecting.
Absolutely, but it also, I think, I would like it to highlight the optimistic point, which is we're a police department. People commit crimes and they get arrested for those crimes. We are able to do that very effectively, very safely in our city. And when I say safe, it's not that I'm just talking about making sure our officers are safe. We're talking about making sure the people arrested are safe. And there are decisions made by everyone involved here. And clearly this person made some terrible decisions last night.
Chief, when can you put us in the shoes of those officers, right? Emotionally, you got a guy firing an AR-15 at him. fortunately, it wasn't much worse than it was, but emotionally, I mean, obviously nobody was injured, but there's gotta be some mental part of this, right? Where, well, how does this affect them, the neighborhood where bullets are flying from an AR-15? Can you take us there?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you asked that question. We have an employee assistance program here that was activated last night at about 1:30 in the morning. So we have peer counselors and support that comes in and talks to our officers to make sure they're doing okay. Obviously, we encourage folks from the community, if they're feeling some trauma, we can help them with that. We have a chaplain program and other programs to be there. But I will tell you another part of this is that we know that there are dangerous people out there and there are people that are going to commit very violent crimes. And our officers realize if they don't step in and do something, the public is the one that has to bear that brunt. And we're the ones that signed up to do this. They're trained to do it, and I'm very proud of the way that they do it.
Chief, how was that officer who was shot at? How are they doing today?
They're doing very well. I know they talked to their district chief. I've had a few text exchanges with. They were obviously working at night, so I'm trying to respect the sleeping patterns of folks. But very good. I'm very proud. I'm not surprised. These are very highly trained and professional officers.
Early on in your investigation, any idea how fast that driver may have been going, trying to get away, maybe before the crash?
That's going to, I think, determine during the investigation. We don't do radar tracks on them when they're fleeing, but we can probably tell from the cross streets. Too soon to give you a good estimation on that. Certainly above the speed limit, but not for very long.
Will you release the body camera video anytime soon, or?
Well, that would typically get released after the investigation went on, but if our community says there's a need, I do have the right to do that if that's an issue. There was some discussion about this. I also want to respect the rights of the person arrested. We certainly wouldn't want to put out a bunch of information that someone later on would say it was an attempt to taint someone or the public opinion. But I think we're the community's police department, not the police department, and our community wants to see these things and they want to understand better what's happening, if no other reason, just to be empathetic to our workforce. And so, yeah, I think it'll come out.
My apologies if you already mentioned this, Chief. What was the specific reason? What was the traffic violation that they were in pursuit of this driver for?
I don't have the actual violations. I know that the initial officer, who was not the officer that was shot at, attempted to stop the car. He was out working at DWI and traffic detail, so you're out looking for drinking drivers given the time of night and those types of things. And he observed behavior that would be indicative of someone that was, I'm guessing, impaired or had certainly done some motor vehicle infractions. We don't stop vehicles for equipment violations, so this would have been a moving violation, and then the car took off. When we're at a lower level, we obviously didn't have gunfire at that point. We make the decision here not to pursue because chases are inherently dangerous to our public. And so that decision was made. I 100% support that officer for making that decision. But obviously after someone starts shooting at the police and shooting randomly out into the community, that decision goes to a different level.
Something like an AR-15, how many rounds can that thing fire off in, say, 30, 60 seconds at your officers or people in the neighborhood? And with something like this, I think you mentioned it was a stolen AR-15. Does that mean the ATF is now involved with you guys as well in this, or is it just solely yours? And maybe you can't even answer this as a third question. Who let this guy out? Why did he get released from DOC? Do you have any idea, Chief?
I have no idea about the DOC piece. I can tell you we have a very tight partnership with the ATF. They're involved in all of our guns cases, so they will be involved. They won't be the lead investigation on this, but they will be involved in it. And the typical AR magazine, and I haven't seen the ones here, will hold 30 rounds. I can tell you, if there's a person in this room that's never fired a firearm, and we have many firearms instructors up here, including myself, we could get you to empty that magazine in probably less than 15 seconds very easily.
Wow. How many rounds in a magazine for those who don't know?
And a typical one, 30. Now, obviously, they make bigger ones, and they also make smaller ones, but a standard AR magazine is going to carry 30 rounds.
How lucky that the cops, neighbors, how lucky is this?
It's unbelievably lucky because the effective range of that firearm, that weapons platform system is very far. It's a very high, you're talking over 2,000 feet per second, and it had the green tip jacketed round, which is designed to penetrate steel. So it's a round that actually, if you were to Google it or look it up, it usually says it's considered to be an inappropriate round for civilians to have.
How many of these are you seeing now out on the streets? I know you don't have an exact number, but how crazy is this getting? And how do you stop? How do you even combat it?
The AR-15 platform, and there's a lot of weapons that fall under that definition, is much more common today than it was 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when most of us started. It would have been an anomaly to have come across someone to have one of them in a car back then. Unfortunately, now it's becoming more and more common.
One more question.
Just want to confirm, not to assume anything, this ammunition you was driving is something that would go through your cars, go through your vest, would
Oh, that round would definitely, and it wouldn't take that round. A standard AR-15 round would go through my vest, through my body, and through the backside of my vest. You wouldn't need, I mean, unless you had some really, really low, soft jacketed rounds. That round travels so fast it would go through my car door, through my vest, and through me. So it's a very, very dangerous weapon system and a very dangerous source of ammunition. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.